Yeah. And then are you?
This morning.
All right, Stochastic, here we go. It's your old pal EMac coming to you with the finest analyst in the business. That would be Craig Ehrenberg, not a projections manager anymore, though once upon a time he certainly was over there at the old basketball monster. What is going on, good sir? It seems like we had a couple changes since we did our earlier show, and a few things are firming up here.
Yeah, and I mean, we did that show so long ago now. It was like, what, 10 hours ago that we did that show. So stuff always changed over the course of the day, but there's been some super, super significant changes. And it's kind of funny, Matt, because most notably, the thing that changed that was not something that was anywhere on our radar this morning is the fact that Şengün is out. And earlier in the day, remember, we had people in the chat who were talking about the Houston game where people were like, hey, what's the deal with his minutes? Why was he playing so low minutes? And presumably I was saying, well, because he just played shitty. They're getting their asses kicked. They went to the bench but it seems like he probably got himself banged up at some point over the course of the game. And I was just kind of undisclosed. And that's what led to him sitting out and now not playing today. And then in addition to that, which is going to be super significant. Jayshawn Tate is questionable for the Rockets. Jabari Smith Jr. is questionable. So we've got all kinds of value opening up. Not to mention that Tre Mann is actually starting now. Earlier in the day, we were talking about the ramifications of some of these recent moves and players who are on new teams. And Tre Mann, we talked about as being a potential punt option. I don't think we thought he was going to start this morning, though, Max. So there's a lot to break down that's different from earlier.
Yeah, that was definitely the big one. So just to catch everybody up real quick, and then we're going to start with guards because that'll work out perfectly with Tre Mann. The key news point is a bunch of players that were dealt are going to be available tonight. So Charlotte is really no longer shorthanded. Memphis is really no longer as shorthanded as they were. You've got Philadelphia, no Mo Bamba. That was a new one that popped up there. They are going to have Tyrese Maxey. Rashawn Holmes is going to be available for the Wizards. We'll see if he plays. Marvin Bagley is likely to start. He missed the last 4 games with a back issue, so that's your 2 centers right now for Washington. Things firmed up a little bit with Atlanta, so no Wesley Matthews, no Patty Mills. Those guys are only playing every 3rd game or so that really doesn't matter. But no DeAndre Hunter on the back-to-back here. And, of course, Clint Capella is out. We're still waiting on DeJounte Murray, who has missed the last 2 games with a back injury, not because he was going to be traded, but because of a back injury. And then Houston, you mentioned Alperen Şengün is out. Jabari Smith dealing with an illness. We'll have to see if he's going to play. Cam Whitmore hurt himself last night. We knew that, so he was out already. And Tari Eason close to a return. He's missed like 25 games, so that's really not going to change much. Indiana, bunch of people are questionable. The key ones are Halliburton and Jalen Smith. They're probably going to be questionable going forward. They're expected to play. Bojan Bogdanovic is available for the Knicks, as is Alec Burks after that trade. Jalen Brunson is a true game time decision with an ankle issue, and then Jericho Sims illness, because why would he want to play when there's nobody? I'm making fun of that, but why everybody's out in the front court and he can't play. And then let's see, I think that was everything else. Devin Booker, that was the other one. We weren't for sure. He was dealing with a sore hip. And then Royce O'Neal and David Roddy are available for Phoenix. So there's our moving parts. But circling all the way back here to Tre Mann, does he become tonight's campaign?
Not exactly, just because there's so much. So to an extent. So last night I'd campaign in all of my lineups, and right now my initial build, I have Tre Mann in between 2/3 and 3/4 of my lineups, but not quite as aggressive as what I did with campaign last night. There's so many guys to like for cheap on this lady, Mac. I mean, we've got Amen Thompson, who I know was a little bit of a disappointment last night. Didn't like totally suck, but he didn't win you any tournaments or anything last night either. But it's worth getting back to Amen Thompson. Buddy Hield is a really good option, also on the cheap end. We've got Jeff Green, Marvin Bagley. Jeff Green, who's likely to play a shit ton of minutes because of all the players who are out for Houston, including other players who could potentially be out. So it's hard for me to say that one player should be in 100% of your lineups the same way I viewed a campaign last night.
All right. The Jeff Green, 37-year-old Jeff Green. That's always a fun one. when he's popping up. But hey, Taj Gibson says, hold my beer. He is 38. So he's on his second 10-day contract, which of course he's the safety blanket of one Tom Thibodeau. Shout out to everybody in chat. Appreciate all the likes we got on that earlier show. We'd love to get some likes here. We already have 1,100 people watching. Just 100 likes. Come on, let's get that up to 200. That would be very helpful. Ace of Spades going to be asking his usual question here, Greg. But before you dive into that, are there any other guard situations you want to kind of cover here? Or shall we wait and see if we get a little bit more information on Maxey and Murray?
Well, so Maxey is in. We already know that Maxey is in, and DeJounte Murray is questionable still. We have gotten other news from Atlanta. One thing that always tilts me a little bit, EMac, is when you start to get a bunch of news from any individual team, and then this always seemingly happens without fail. NBA injury report comes out at 5:30. The Atlanta Hawks have 5 guys on the injury report, and I'm going, oh, cool, we're getting the DeJounte Murray news. And we get all the players who don't matter nearly as much as DeJounte Murray, but we get everybody else where it's like, Wes Matthews out, DeAndre Hunter, he's out. Bruno Fernando is randomly out. Patty Mills is out. It's like, come on, tell us about DeJounte Murray. That's the guy we really care about. But yeah, to your question, by the way, Jabari Smith Jr. is now probable. We just got that word that came across. So that's going to make a pretty big difference, especially when you consider Jayshawn Tate also now probable with the Şengün news being out from before. So that's somebody now in Jabari Smith Jr., who's going to be in a lot of my lineups. And it's funny, we had some questions in Discord as well. Eric M was asking me, which players am I boosting in the Sims? The first player I boosted, or the only player I had boosted, was Jabari Smith Jr., because I wanted to have more of him for a couple of reasons. Number one, I already think he looks really good without Şengün, but I also just wanted to make sure I had a lot of lineup spots reserved with him in the case he got ruled out, and I could pivot myself to other Houston Rockets value. Now he's in. He's going to show up in a lot of my lineups, but that was one guy who I was going to be ROI boosting. As far as other players, I would say that it makes sense right now to also do a little bit of an ROI boost to Trae Young in case DeJounte Murray is out. But Jabari Smith, you just could kind of play whatever you get of him now that he's confirmed in. But yeah, Trae Young is somebody who I recommend ROI boosting for now. You're really going to want to have him in lineups if Murray sits.
Right. Let's see here. We got Hannah Banana handing out the gifted memberships there. Thank you. Chris Williams did as well. And then Ace of Spades says, hey, Greg, get off your ass, do some work, and tell me about some tiers.
Oh my God, he's usually much nicer than that.
I know. Well, he added thanks. There was a thanks in there. So
okay. All right. As long as he wasn't throwing in any slurs or anything, like calling me Eric, like that would be really offensive. But if he's just calling me an ass or whatever, I'm totally cool with that. Okay. DK tiers, if we're going to be going option by option here for tier 1, I'm going to be going with Trae Young right now. It's very close from a projection standpoint between Trae Young and Donovan Mitchell, but considering DeJounte Murray's questionable, could be ruled out, I'm going to go with Trae Young there in tier 1. Tier 2, there's going to be Tyrese Maxey for me now that he's confirmed in from the illness. Tier 3, Jaren Jackson Jr. We talked a lot about Triple J this morning, EMac, and about his just absurd usage rate. Off the top of my head, I believe it's since January 20th. The last time that Jaren Jackson Jr. had a game with under 35% usage was January 20th, and it was like a 34% usage game. So he's just taking a boatload of shots for that team, like him in tier 3. Tier 4, that is going to be Tobias Harris. I know that we do have Tyrese Maxey confirmed in, but still, Tobias Harris benefiting from the absence of Joel Embiid. I like him in tier 4 relative to the other options who are like, Kyle Kuzma, Vooch, Kobe White. Tier 5, that is going to be Jalen Green for me, also powered by the absence of Alperen Şengün there. Tier 6, I'm going to be going with Precious Achiuwa, who I also think is just going to play an absurd amount of minutes for the Knicks. So Ace of Spade, thank you very much for the super chat. We always appreciate it.
Absolutely. All righty. Hey, we are sponsored today by BetMGM. They have a deal for you. This deal expires tomorrow afternoon because, of course, Super Bowl 58 is tomorrow. So here's the deal. Sign up through the link in the Discord or in the YouTube chat, or the YouTube description below us here, and you make a $10 deposit over there on BetMGM. Make a $5 wager, and you're going to get $158 in bet credits, regardless of whether you win or you lose that $5 wager. So that is a pretty nifty deal. Again, that is going to be done shortly because Super Bowl 58 NBA is tomorrow. That kickoff is at 6:30. I want to remind everybody we are going early, 1 o'clock for the NFL Deeper Dive, and then 2 o'clock for the NFL Live Before Lock. That's because people are heading out to Super Bowl parties. We should know pretty much everything we need to know, with maybe the exception of Jerick McKinnon, and then if he is in officially, what's going to be happening with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But aside from that, there don't appear to be any other moving parts there. We have a lot of content, including free content on the Stochastic homepage as well, breaking down a variety of props and other things that you guys can check out. All right, Greg, how are you feeling about the Tyrese Maxey illness? Because I should call you Dr. Greg, because clearly you've been keeping tabs on this one here. You think he's going to be at least a reasonable facsimile of himself tonight?
Yeah, I do. And the main reason for me thinking this is because they held him out last night, right? So if they held him out last night, but they're willing to play him today, they wouldn't have played him they would have played him last night if they were okay with him playing through an illness. So I think he's probably going to be good to go for today. And he is far too low owned, in my opinion, for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's a lot of value on this slate. It's not all that hard to find guys to pay up for. And then also we've got Tyrese Maxey, who's only coming in at 12% ownership. And if you look at his numbers this year, I'm going to pull them up in front of me. With Joel Embiid off the court, they've been really good this year. And there's this narrative that I see that gets thrown around a pretty good amount. I see it in our Discord channel too, about how Tyrese Maxey is no good with Joel Embiid off the court. But that's really not the case. In terms of his fantasy point projection, and I'm pulling up the numbers right here, so I'm only going off memory, what I've looked up in the past, but his true shooting percentage, it's like 58% with Joel Embiid off the court. It's 58% with Joel Embiid on the court, 56% with Joel Embiid off the court, which says what? Yeah, slightly less efficient, but not some sort of massive gap. But that's to be expected when somebody takes on a bigger usage role and they're not playing with a star teammate. And then in terms of fantasy points, he scores about 4 more fantasy points per 36 minutes without Joel Embiid. So there's this narrative that Tyrese Maxey can't play without Joel Embiid. And for sure, the Philadelphia 76ers are considerably worse without Joel Embiid. But that's not the case for Tyrese Maxey. He's not worse without Joel Embiid, and he draws a great matchup tonight against the Washington Wizards. So as far as pay-up options go, I think that he's one of the better contrarian guys to spend up for on this slate. Now, maybe if you're of the opinion that he actually is still sick, then that could be something that you factor in, and possibly that is why his ownership is a little bit lower than what I think it should be. But for what the upside is on Tyrese Maxey, I don't think the field is getting there nearly enough. It's a matchup against the Wizards. The total in this game is 242 points, EMac, and he's going to have a usage rate just massively high for the rest of the season without Embiid.
Yeah, so putting it one other context, because this is fantasy, so DFS, fantasy points per minute, when Embiid is on the court with Maxey scores about 1.1 fantasy points per minute. When Embiid is off the court, that moves up to almost 1.3. I, too, am going from memory because I wrote them up in my article the last couple of days because I liked those numbers, and that narrative just seems to be floating around. Yes, he has had some disappointing games without Embiid, but I see what, some folks are saying, hey, that it's only the games where Embiid doesn't play. Yeah, it's all the time when Embiid is not on the court as well. So unless he enjoys having his teammate root him on from the bench, which he can still do after the knee surgery, we have to trust the numbers on this one. It hurts. There's biases everywhere. We all have them, but we got to let that one go or hang on to it. And we're going to be playing Tyrese Maxey tonight. Let's move on here into kind of the shooting guards. Any other guards you didn't hit on that you would like to cover? Perhaps a Steph Curry, Devin Booker.
No. So when we did the show this morning, Devin Booker was already ruled in. Nothing's changed there. And then what was the other player you were asking me about?
Steph Curry.
Yeah, and then as far as Steph Curry goes, he's not on the injury report or anything. Also, not somebody who I'm like massively interested in playing on this slate. I've not played Steph Curry very frequently this season. He's just not the same level of fantasy producer as other studs that we have to pay up for. Now, one thing about this slate is that it's not like we have the like the Luka, Jokic, or like Giannis type players to get to on the slate. But I still find guys like Tyrese Maxey to be a really good pay-up option. I'm just going to go through some of my exposures right now. Sure. So Tyrese Maxey, really good pay-up option. Jaren Jackson Jr., another really good pay-up option. This is a spot where Kyle Kuzma, I think, should play really big minutes because the spread for the game is only 5 points now that Tyrese Maxey is ruled in. In competitive games, Kuzma plays upwards of 37, 38 minutes in games that are blowouts, which the Wizards are in all the time. We see Kuzma play like 28 to 32 minutes. It's very hard to say very many Wizards games should be competitive because they often are like 16-point underdogs. Last night, they were 18-point underdogs. They did keep that game close, but a 5-point spread, you have to expect it to be close. That should mean big minutes for Kyle Kuzma.
Right. One thing you mentioned, Jaren Jackson again. He is someone who's really interesting. So, reigning defensive player of the year, was first team all defense, which makes sense because he's the reigning defensive player of the year. He, in his last 11 games, has scored more than 40 fantasy points 8 times, but only one of those has been over 50. So he's kind of taps out right around there. And that was on the FanDuel Yahoo scoring, which gives you 3 points for blocks and steals, which of course he is very, very good at. So he's got a great floor. Everything has to come together for him to crest over those 50 fantasy points, because he's not quite as tenacious of a rebounder as you might think. I think his career average is right around 8, if I remember correctly. I haven't looked at that in a while, but he is a good play. He's a core play, absolutely, today from a fantasy point per dollar. If we kind of stick on the forwards here, what are you thinking about Kevin Durant? We didn't talk a ton about him, but now that we kind of know Booker's playing, etc., setting aside that, yes, once upon a time he did play with the Golden State Warriors, he is one of our other pay-up options tonight. Is he worth it to you?
So the answer is no, but I could check to see exactly how much Durant I'm getting to right now. So I have 1.3% of Kevin Durant. The problem we run into with the Suns guys is when Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal are all healthy, it's just a lot of just sharing the ball amongst a bunch of guys. And also their skills very much overlap. It's not like one of them is a shot blocker, one of them is a distributor, one of them is a scorer. All 3 of them are scorers. They all do have some assist upside. They all do have some ability to rebound the basketball. When you just have this overlap in terms of guys who are on the same team that, while are all very good players, also score fantasy points in the exact same realm, they're very negatively correlated. And as a result, when all of them are out there, it's really hard to reliably expect any of them to have upside. So not anybody that I'm getting to really significantly there from the Suns. I have, let's see, between Booker, Beal, and Durant, I have the most of Booker in 3% of my lineups.
Okay. That makes sense. I'd ask. I'm building up my one Yahoo lineup, and I think I'm going to be going with Durant just because of the way the positioning works there. It's a more unique puzzle over there. I like to play one lineup. They have a whole bunch of leagues that you can get into. Sometimes it takes them a while to fill, but Greg, they do like every Friday of the NBA season, or 20 games in a row or something like that, and you just keep playing the same people over and over, and then some of them pay out the winner each day, and then they pay out usually kind of like a best ball contest, but you're playing DFS every day. It's a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed that format. That used to be more prevalent way back in the day on Draft Street, FanDuel, etc. Not so much anymore, but the old dinosaurs, we like to go see some of those fun games from time to time. So when you guys hear me talking about Yahoo, it's because I like to solve that puzzle every day. It's a new one. It's like my version of the New York Times crossword.
It's doing a 3-minute ad read for a site that decided to stop working with us, EMac.
You want to know how you make money? You find these little edges here. I see someone in chat was saying that they beat me every day. I'm letting you win. I don't know that you're beating me. I'm letting you win. But there we go. All right. Who else is standing out for you on the forwards here? You can feather your way into the front court as well, and then we'll get into some questions and some other things. It's not quite as the mid ranges. There's a lot of juicy things to talk about here, but then that creates a whole bunch of lineup questions, 2v2s, etc. So we'll continue on here with the kind of the front court. What do you want to call out from there? We have
a bunch of questions in Discord if we want to answer those.
Let's do those then.
All right, so let's go ahead and look at Discord right now. We do have a question here from, first one is from Captain Akella asking us his normal question, which is, who is one player that we really like in a single entry? So it could still be somebody we like in large field tournaments, but EMac, is there somebody particular you have your eyes on for single entry on DraftKings?
So it's going to be Jaren Jackson Jr. is one of my core plays today. I also like where's my article? Precious Achua is getting a little tricky to get to. He, I think, is a good core play. He, over the last 5 games, is averaging about 40 fantasy points per game, about 40 minutes per game, and that was with Isaiah Hartenstein. Hartenstein is out. We'll have to see what's happening with Jericho Sims. Of course, OG Anunoby is going to miss a couple of weeks here. He did have a procedure on his elbow to deal with a bone spur that was causing the swelling with his elbow, and then obviously Julius Randle out as well. So this is a likely 40-minute spot here for Precious. I think he is a decent fantasy point per dollar option, not the screaming value that he was earlier, but even with his increasing salary, I think he is somebody that's a reasonable play. So he would be my other one.
Yeah, so for me, somebody who I'm well overweight to that I like quite a bit for single entry as well. So I really hope he ends up landing in my top projected lineup. If not, I'll try to force him into it if I can. Marvin Bagley. So the Washington Wizards are very, very thin in the front court. They are getting Rashawn Holmes active as well today. Rashawn Holmes, he was part of the Daniel Gafford trade. But Marvin Bagley, I do expect to start and play pretty considerable minutes for the Washington Wizards. And we've seen him start a good amount for this team. And he's Marvin Bagley. There's always a wide range of outcomes when he starts. But we have seen 12 starts for Marvin Bagley this year across his time against with the Pistons as well as with the Wizards. And he's playing 27 minutes per game as a starter, averaging 27 fantasy points. And that's what he is. He is about a fantasy point per minute guy. And as bad as he is as a real life player, he's always been at least relatively decent as a fantasy guy. And even on the low end, I think you should be projecting Marvin Bagley for somewhere around 28 minutes. And considering that he's playing in a game against the Philadelphia 76ers, expect to be very fast paced, 242 point total. And once again, no Joel Embiid. That's going to make for an easier defensive matchup. I think it's reasonable to expect Marvin Bagley to be around a fantasy point per minute guy in this matchup, which means if you're going to give him minutes in the high 20s, you're getting around 30 fantasy points for Bagley, and people are not really rostering him.
The interesting thing about him is he is such a good, bad team, great stats guy. I mean, this is just primo for him. Being on the Wizards. So it was a shame when he got hurt because that's the other hallmark of him is he just can't stay healthy, but he can drop 40 fantasy points tonight. I'm excited to see it because you are correct. You can get him at a really good discount here. I don't have anything else to add other than making fun of the Wizards for collecting the 2020 Sacramento Kings with DeLon Wright and Rashawn Holmes now on this as well.
We got news, by the way, that we should hit on. So Scottie Pippen Jr. inactive tonight. He will not be active tonight for the Memphis Grizzlies. So I assume that it's something to do with his contract status and how many games he's eligible to play since he was a call up from the G League. Another part that's relevant to this is that Derrick Rose has been ruled active. So I assume that Scottie Pippen probably heads back to the G League, but just letting people know because there is a chance that people might be playing Scottie Pippen Jr. The last time we saw this, where Scottie Pippen Jr. was potentially going to start for the team and then he was ruled inactive, he ended up being like 12% on. So don't play Scottie Pippen Jr. tonight.
No, that's a good call out, and I forget the exact rules of the two-way contract, but you can be like 50 days or something like that active with the big club, and then there's rules about because we'll just activate them during game days. Then there's rules about how often they have to go back and play in the G League to reset that. So anyway, that is a good call out here. Any other Discord questions?
Yep. Yeah, we've got a few. So we'll go back into Discord and shout out because DGen Dimes in the chat said, good to know he had Pippen in a few of his lineups. Yeah, guys, get Scottie Pippen out of your lineups because he's not playing. He's not playing for the Grizzlies, so he shouldn't be playing for your fantasy team either. But answer that question from Eric. We've got one here from Mr. Cool Cam. He wants to know, actually, we got this question twice in a row here. So we got Mr. Cool Cam as well as Rico Rod asked for my favorite single entry plays or favorite FanDuel plays in general by position. So yeah, I'll go over to FanDuel and we'll go position by position here. So at point, do you have lineups built for FanDuel EMac or just
I have not, but I will be doing that next.
All right, so cool. I'll just go the players that I got to at the most at each position for FanDuel, starting at point guard. Eamon Thompson at point guard, Buddy Hield at shooting guard, Jeff Green at small forward, Marvin Bagley at power forward, and Precious Achua at center. So we talked a good amount about Precious Achua earlier in the day, and I'll bring him up again here because here's the status of the Knicks right now. We've got Jericho Sims question. We've also got Jalen Brunson questionable. Precious Achua has been playing insane minutes for the Knicks as of late, like a number that you almost would never feel comfortable projecting a player for, but you just have to project Precious Achua for north of 40 minutes because the last handful of games, he's played 41 and a half minutes, 40 and a half minutes, 42 and a half minutes, 43 and a half minutes, 40 and a half minutes. And now Isaiah Hartenstein is out tonight for the Knicks. So they are massively shorthanded in the front court. And unless that there's some sort of foul trouble for Precious Achua, he is certainly going to play north of 40 minutes. And I mean, he could end up playing the entire game if the Knicks absolutely have to. And Tom Thibodeau does not give a shit. He'll run his guys into the ground in the regular season. Every single game, I say. He plays like it's game 7 of the NBA championship. And now we also have Jericho Sims questionable because he's dealing with an illness, one of a million NBA players that are sick at the moment. So Precious Achua is a big man option who I really, really do like getting to on both DraftKings and FanDuel.
Righty. Any others in there?
Yeah.
Just keep loading them up.
Sure. And then we can catch back up on some of the super chats that we have there. But first, Gang Green is asking us, what are my thoughts on Dylan Brooks for DraftKings tonight? Yeah, I am not a big fan of Dylan Brooks at all, but you have to look at the Houston Rockets rotation and who it actually is that they have available for today, because this is what the Houston injury report is looking like. So we did officially get the Jayshawn Tate and Jabari Smith. They've been upgraded from questionable to probable, but Tari Eason is out, Cam Whitmore is out, Fred VanVleet is out, and Şengün is out tonight. So Dylan Brooks is somebody who we do know is a regularly part of the Houston Rockets rotation. It's a good matchup against the Atlanta Hawks. So we're going to get the normal mid-30s minutes for Dylan Brooks as long as he doesn't do something stupid like kick somebody in the balls and get ejected or get like 3 personal fouls in a minute. These are all things that are within the toolbox of Dylan Brooks. These are things that he's done before in the past. But as long as that doesn't happen, Dylan Brooks is going to play pretty substantial minutes because of the amount of players who are out in a plus matchup against the Atlanta Hawks. So, yeah, Dylan Brooks is somebody. And by the way, we just officially found out Jabari Smith Jr. is available to play. So up from questionable to probable to in over the course of the last 15 minutes there on Jabari Smith Jr. So, yeah, Dylan Brooks is currently landing in, let's see, I had him in 27% of my FanDuel lineups, and then also getting to him 17% of my DraftKings lineups here. So, yeah, Dylan Brooks is somebody to have in, not somebody who I'm like loading up on or anything like that, but he's definitely a rotation piece that's in my lineups there. Next question that we have coming to us is from Bears35. He wants to know, am I doing anything with DeJounte Murray's ROI in the Sims? He says he's getting to him about a third of his lineups. Yeah, I have a good amount of exposure to DeJounte Murray myself right now, and I'm cool with it. I'm not totally positive he plays, but here's why it's good to have him in. If he plays, cool. I like him as an option. If he's out, super easy to make pivots for a couple of reasons. Number one, a lot of guys on the Houston Rockets already look good. So you can just go from DeJounte Murray to more of those Houston guys that are already projecting well. But then in addition to that, you're going to want to turn some of your DeJounte Murray exposure into Trae Young in the event that DeJounte Murray sits. So something else you could do that will artificially lower your exposure a little bit to DeJounte Murray. If you give yourself an ROI upgrade boost to Trae Young, you get to a little bit more Trae Young, a little bit less of DeJounte Murray. But yeah, I think you do want to make sure that your lineups are situated so that you can make swaps to Atlanta Hawks players if DeJounte Murray is out. So it's totally reasonable to have lineups reserved for Murray right now. The next question here, EMac, it is from Eric M. He wants to know our favorite players position by position for DraftKings. Do you have DraftKings lineups built?
I can speak to that. We also have that same super chat from Thomas Ryan.
Oh, look at that. All right. So a couple people have asked. We've got people asking who our favorite players are at each position on DraftKings. So EMac, you start with point guard, and then I'll go point guard afterwards, and we'll bounce it. We'll go back and forth position by position.
All right, I'm going to be a chalk donkey with Trae, man. He opens everything else up, and you need to be cognizant how you build lineups with him because he's going to be incredibly popular, but he is the facilitator for everything else.
I'm going to go with Amen Thompson at point guard. Shooting guard. What do you got for us there?
Shooting guard. So shooting guard, I like Mikal Bridges. I think he is an intriguing option. I'm curious to see. Oops, I'm sorry. That game is starting right now. That is why that is all screwed up. Let me get my filters corrected here.
Don't worry, I got this. I can do that. All right. So
I would say it's Amen Thompson in Atlanta there. Very disappointing last night, but that's okay. Josh Engelman called out the under on his PRA, so we rode that one on Prize Picks, sort of as a hedge against him on the DFS sites. But I think this is a good matchup for his skill set. His salary does continue to creep up there, but this looks like there'll be more opportunities for rebounding and defensive stats, especially with Şengün not pulling down all the boards.
So for me, it's shooting guard. Yeah, so I'm actually in the same answers as you, just putting them into different positions, which makes zero difference. It's just the way that I read it off here. But yeah, shooting guard and point guard spots, that's Tre Mann and Amen Thompson for me. And then it's small forward, that is going to be Buddy Hield. How about for yourself? Okay. That, yeah, there's certain guys here who are just going to pop up a ton in the Sims, and it's totally justified, like Buddy Hield, like Amen Thompson, like Tre Mann at a really cheap price point. So let's go to power forward, because we might be able to have some more interesting things to say at these other positions.
Well, I was going to throw out Vince Williams Jr.
Okay.
Sort of as the small forward there, specifically on DK 6,000. He's a little more expensive on FanDuel. Doesn't work from a points per dollar basis there. But even with them creating a deeper roster with some of those acquisitions, he should still be one of their main contributors. I think Gigi Jackson's going to kind of slide out of the mix more often than not, but I think Williams will get there with some regularity, and at 6,000 on DraftKings shooting guard small forward availability, I like him.
Power forward, what do you have for power forward then?
Power forward is going to be Mr. Tobias Harris going against the Washington Wizards. Jaren Jackson Jr. we've already hit on, so to shake things up a little, I'll throw Tobias in there.
It is Jaren Jackson Jr. for me at power forward. So bring us home with center then, EMac.
All right, center. Well, we've hit on Marvin Bagley, but I also liked Precious Achiuwa, and I'm not sure what to do with Andre Drummond. And we did get a question about that, a super chat that's asking, what's up with the minutes for Andre Drummond the last two games? So we'll break that down in just a sec here, but I would say Bagley, Achiuwa, and Drummond.
Yeah, so for me at center, I will go with Marvin Bagley. I think there's a couple of guys who I think are pretty good contrarian options at center. One of them being Marvin Bagley, who's only projected for ownership slightly over 10%. And then Precious Achiuwa, who's projected for ownership just under 10% over on DraftKings. And we did get the starting lineup for the 76ers, by the way, which I think could be of interest to people considering that, Tyrese Maxey's back. How is that going to alter the starting lineup for some of these other guys? And same deal as last night, but just Maxey sliding in place of Campaign. So we got Maxey, Hield, Oubre, Harris, and Paul Reed as our starting five for the Philadelphia 76ers.
All right. So the what I wanted to call out for Drummond here is he has been playing alongside Vucevic. They're still staggering them, but we saw in that Timberwolves game, they played about 22, 23 minutes next to each other, which is a bit of a departure here. There was less overlap in the last game, but we still had 31 total minutes for Drummond and 38 for Vooch. So just some quick back of the math on there. That's probably going to be about 9 minutes they did not play together. So another 20 or so minutes they did play together. Just looking at Drummond's rotations.
Yeah, and
rotation box scores are so cool. I remember when those kind of popped up about 10 or 12 years ago. Very helpful.
Yeah, for sure, especially because there are things that you could find. And by the way, this is not the case with Andre Drummond at all. But every once in a while, you'll look at it and be like, hey, what's the deal with this guy's minutes? You'll go ahead and you'll look into it and be like, the starter was in foul trouble or so-and-so got hurt. And then somebody picked up extra minutes. That's not the case here. What's going on with the Bulls is that they played against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And the Minnesota Timberwolves, big team, right? They got Rudy Gobert. They got Karl-Anthony Towns in the front court. So to counter the Minnesota Timberwolves bigs, what the Bulls did is they said, we're going to start Drummond alongside Vooch in the front court. And what ends up happening? Drummond plays 35 and a half minutes, aided by overtime. The game did go to OT, and they win the game. So since they win the game, they don't start Drummond alongside Vooch in the next game. But what they did do is they still played them together a decent amount. And then also, Drummond came off the bench and played a ton of minutes in that game. So even though Vooch played 39 minutes in that game, we still got 31 minutes for Drummond off the bench. So we've now seen significant minutes for Andre Drummond alongside Vooch 2 games in a row. And the Bulls won both of those games. So with that in mind, it is really hard to think the Bulls are going to pivot and just go back to say like, hey, Drummond, you're back to playing 15 minutes. Now, I can't say there's a 0% probability that it happens, but our projections are expecting this role to keep up for Andre Drummond. I'm expecting this role to keep up for Andre Drummond. And as a result of that, I do think he's a good center to be getting to because he's been playing alongside Vooch. It doesn't make any sense logically, but we've seen the Bulls win 2 games in a row with this makeup, so I don't think they're going to get away from it.
All right. Another super chat here. Who are your lowest owned players at each position on DraftKings?
So I assume he means who are the players
kind of your leverage plays is how I'm going to interpret that.
All right. Yeah. So let me pull up the most recent ownership projections that we have, and I'll compare that to my current exposures, and then we'll see who it is that I am getting to. By the way, we just got some additional news here. We got the starting lineup for the Grizzlies: Gilliard, Conchar, Vince Williams, Aldama, Jaren Jackson Jr. No surprise that Gilliard is starting when you consider that, like we brought up before, Scottie Pippen Jr. inactive for tonight's game. And we do have the Bulls starting lineup, which is Derek White, Dosunmu, Caruso, DeRozan, Vooch. So if people thought that the Bulls would potentially go to Vooch and Drummond together starting, that's not the case. But I don't think that means that Andre Drummond doesn't have any kind of playing time upside. I still think he does. And then we also got word that DeJounte Murray is going to be in today. So DeJounte Murray will be playing.
Thank you. All key things there. And I'm putting the DK lineups here through the sim. The one thing I did learn on the sims, it's easier to don't run the 2 different sites in 2 different tabs at the same time. It doesn't like that.
No. It's not designed to do that. So you just want to run
2 different browsers would probably work, but not if you're using Chrome. If you need to use Chrome and Edge or something like that. But.
So let's see. Lowest owned player at each position. I'll sort by the projected ownership, my exposures. All right. So starting with point guard, the player I'm most overweight to is Tyrese Maxey. How about for yourself, EMac?
Ooh, that's nice. No, I'm looking at it right now, and it looks like I'm getting a lot of Trae Young. So I'm assuming what I had done before did not take into account DeJounte Murray. I gave him
and also because people were asking us about ROI boosts earlier, do not positive ROI boost Trae Young anymore. You could undo that and take that off. So that was something I was just doing, is resorting my lineups in the Sims tool, which, by the way, if you guys want to sign up for any of the packages at Stochastic, we got links for those below. It comes with access to Discord, so we can answer your guys' questions throughout the night. But yeah, as far as Trae Young goes, no reason to positive ROI boost him anymore because DeJounte Murray, no chance of him being out because he is currently now ruled in. So point guard for me, that is going to be Tyrese Maxey. Shooting guard for me, that is going to be... I mean, there's nobody who's low owned that I'm crazy overweight to. I'm a little bit overweight to Kobe White. So I could say Kobe White, but it's not like there's somebody who's like 5% owned that I have 30% of with shooting guard eligibility or anything like that. Anybody for yourself?
I wanted to see. I'm not quite as quick as changing. Okay. Buddy Hield. We have a good leverage score on him. I've got him on 87% of my teams. I'm assuming that will come down a little bit if we do one more ownership or one more projections run here. So he is the biggest. Amen Thompson, even with the field at 70%, he's looking like a very popular player today. That I was a little surprised by. And I was hoping I'd get Vince Williams. I'm actually even with the field at 16%. I thought I would get more.
So for me at small forward, that is going to be Tobias Harris. How about yourself, EMac? At small forward.
We mentioned Buddy Hield. Next guy up is Tobias Harris, and then it's Vince Williams Jr. So I'm assuming a lot of that is Buddy.
But Buddy Hield is the guy you're considering your low owned play?
Oh, my low owned. God, no.
Yeah. So we're doing the same question.
Yeah. No. My bad. Dante DiVincenzo. I kind of wanted to hit on him when you were talking about Precious Achiuwa. He still does have, because of this matchup, he still has a little bit of profit potential in his salary. If Brunson is in, it gets a little thinner, but I think he's okay in this one because I still think he'll get more minutes over Bogdanovic and Burks because of how well he's played. But we're right about at the envelope of where the magic is over because his salary has really caught up to him.
Power forward. Let's see, where am I at power forward? So Tobias Harris also is power forward eligibility, but I don't want to go with him here. I already said him at small forward. So at power forward, Precious Achua at $6,900. We've got Achua projected for sub 10% ownership. The minute ceiling is really, really crazy high for Precious Achua. I think that he's going well overlooked by the field. I understand the price point has gotten higher, but the ownership is down so low. I mean, 8.5% for Precious Achua. He's a contrarian play that I'm overweight to.
Yep, I've fair amount of him. Jalen Johnson, another one I wanted to call out. I'm a little bit above the field at about 7% there. This is a good matchup for him, not having to deal with Şengün, not having to deal with Clint Capella. He can really stuff the stat sheets, and he provides double-digit rebounds quite a bit, which is something is a little bit surprising, and that's very helpful, not having two really good rebounders, one from each team that are going to be out on the court. Of course, they'll still have to deal with the Kongwu and the front court of Houston, but I think he's someone who is interesting tonight. So Jalen Johnson.
And now if we go ahead to the centers to wrap it up, let's see, who do I want to go with at center? I've already talked about him. We'll go back to him. Marvin Bagley. You just run out of low, like there's only so many roster spots. So when we get different questions about people who are asking us, who are our favorite low owned plays, I just kind of run out of guys to say, because I'm not going to have, like 80 low owned players in my player pool. So going back to a Marvin Bagley, he's my favorite low owned center on the slate. Wide range of outcomes with his minutes for sure with him coming back from injury, but he is confirmed in the starting lineup. The Wizards' only two bigs they have available in the lineup for tonight, or I should say on the roster tonight, are Bagley and Richaun Holmes. We don't know what Richaun Holmes' role is going to be making his debut with the team. So give me Marvin Bagley as a low-owned center option.
Right, and it looks like we just got a projections update, so I'm assuming that the ownership and the Sims will be pushing through in just a second there, Greg. So I'm going to go over and start creating some FanDuel lineups to get
all
those
right
uploaded here.
So while you're doing that, let's see what else we have as far as super chats go, and then we go back into Discord and
there's one more
of those
from
questions.
Diego Alvarez asking us to rank the top two amongst Okongwu, Paul Reed, Precious Achua, and Bagley. I would go with number 3 and 4, Achua and Bagley.
I've got a question for you though.
Yes.
Do you know what the dollar sign is there? Because I found this from multiple super chats. I'm not 100% positive, but I think I know. Do you know what kind of money that is that he's left us that for, or would you like to try to guess?
Is that a P or a D with the slash through it? I can't quite tell.
All right, so I didn't realize part of this was going to be teaching you the alphabet, but it is I believe that is the Filipino peso that Diego has left.
Oh, that's a P. Okay, yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that is, or as some would say, you could call it an upside down D or B EMac. That is another way to interpret.
Well, I was trying to think, like the bot is South Asian currency. I was going for there. If it was a B, definitely not Bitcoin. No, when your eyes go, I used to think it was funny till it started happening to me. When your eyes start to go crazy.
To be honest, I can't see shit either. My eyesight is horrendous and a massive fuck up on my part. So here's what I did the other day. I went to go order contacts. In New Jersey, you can't order contacts unless you have a recent prescription. So I ordered contacts from Costco, and sometimes they'll just kind of let the order go through without a prescription. So order them from Costco, gets denied because I don't have the prescription. Try to order them from 1-800-CONTACTS, gets denied because I don't have the prescription. I'm out of contacts. I need to be able to see stuff. It's part of my job and just part of life. You like to be able to see. So I make an appointment with an optometrist so that I could get the updated prescription so I could order my contacts, get that done, order the contacts right there from the optometrist. And then because I had sent in these other orders from other places, my optometrist ended up okaying it and sent the prescriptions out. So I just had 2 years worth of contacts delivered to my house. So anyway, my eyes, they can't get worse because I got 2 years worth of contacts.
Good news, I feel you. Bad news.
I feel you.
You don't need to go to the eye doctor for a while. I hope your prescription doesn't change.
As far as the answer to the question, where Diego Alvarez is asking us, Okongwu, Reed, Achua, Bagley, top 2 out of 4. So if we're just talking about projection here and which players I'm expecting to have the most fantasy points, and that's what we're concerned about here, that is going to be Precious Achua and Onyeka Okongwu for me. 2 guys who neither of them are all that popular either. But I actually like all 4 of the centers in his questionnaire. I like getting to Okongwu. I like getting to Reed. I like Achua and Bagley. I know it's kind of a cop-out for me as an answer, but I do like all 4 of them. But the ones that I've projected the best of those, it's going to be Precious Achua as well as Onyeka Okongwu. Thank you for the super chat, Diego.
All right. And then reminder everybody, I know we talk a lot about the Sims, but we do have the lineup generator. It's sort of Sims Lite. I believe that is Josh Engelman's phrase. You can build out and save up to 20 lineups at a time, and you can download those. You can build up to 500 with the basic package. Trust me, after doing this and writing articles about it, getting 500 is plenty if you're just going to play 20 lineups. It's a lot of fun. You can influence the players that you have, discard lineups that you don't like, swap players out. It leverages everything that we have, including the foundation of what the Sims is built on, the leverage, the boom bust, all of that other stuff. It's just $14.95 per week. That also gives you access to Discord. It's a great way if you want to play, 10, 20 bucks a night, build out 10 or so lineups and have a good little sweat towards the end of the night and not build crappy lineups. It gets rid of those for you. So I do like the lineup generator. Question for you on the Sims, and then we'll hand the baton back to you.
Okay, so we should answer. We do have questions from Discord.
Oh, sure.
So no offense, EMac, because I love you, but I'm going to prioritize the customer questions over the questions that you're about to ask that I know are going to be for yourself because I'm friends with you. I love you, and I know where all your questions come from. It's from he's tinkering with his own line.
They come from my heart, Greg. Yeah. They come from
EMac uses the show as a way to get free super chats in and to ask questions that he wants to know for his own lineup builds. But yeah, we'll get to the outstanding questions that we have in Discord here, and then we'll look at some of the super chats that are coming in, and then we'll get to EMac's own desired questions. But first, Rico Rod is asking, is Tre Mann a good option for FanDuel? He's not a good option. He's a great option over on FanDuel. So the scenario that we're dealing with Tre Mann for tonight is that he is starting for the Charlotte Hornets. The reason that he's starting is because of the fact that they've cut Ish Smith. They also don't have LaMelo Ball active. They just traded for him. I don't know for sure that Tre Mann's going to come out and play like 35 minutes or something like that in his first game with the team, but he is starting. I could see this being pretty similar to the situation that we had with Campaign last night with the 76ers. And the other thing too is even if the game is a blowout, I think we could see Tre Mann play garbage time for the Charlotte Hornets. And I don't think this game is going to be a blowout against the Memphis Grizzlies. Only a 5-point spread. But Tre Mann, he's good on FanDuel. On DraftKings, where he's even cheaper, he's a really good option. But even $4,600 on FanDuel, he is solidly in play. We also did get news that Jalen Smith is going to be out for tonight. So that is also something to keep in mind. We're going to have some projections updates for the Indiana Pacers. It's going to matter, but it's not like that massively alters the slate with Jalen Smith being out. The next question that we have here, it is from... Let's see. Gator Nation wants to know, am I fading the first game for FanDuel, the Bulls and Orlando game? Let's see. What was my exposure for Bulls Orlando? By the way, you can't fade all of the first game because there's three games. There's Memphis, Charlotte, Chicago, Orlando, Philadelphia, and Washington. Definitely do not fade the 7 p.m. games. As far as Bulls and Orlando, let's see. What was I liking from that game on FanDuel specifically? So for FanDuel purposes, the player I got the most of, Drummond, and I'm a little bit overweight to Kobe White on FanDuel as well. But no, Gator Nation, you got to play the first game on the slate today because there's 3 of them, and it's a fairly small slate. If it was only a 7 p.m. game, maybe that would be a different situation. But nah, not with 3 7 p.m. games. You're going to have to. IC50 wants to know, which team will I roster the most tonight? That has to be the let me look at my exposure. That has to be the Rockets.
For me, it's going to, at least on FanDuel, it's going to end up being the Rockets because Jeff Green is everywhere in my lineups.
He's asking, I'm pretty sure this is a DraftKings question, but I think it's the same for me on both sites. It's the Houston Rockets. Yeah, Rockets. I mean, Amen Thompson, Jeff Green, Jalen Green. There's a lot of guys to like from the Houston Rockets.
And everybody keep in mind, Şengün being out along with Fred VanVleet, even though VanVleet's only missed a couple games, it's a huge impact to the usage, the minutes, and the field goal attempts there.
The next question that we have here, it is from Master PJ. With Murray in, is Mitchell now better for tiers? No, I still prefer Trae Young, but it's closer than it would have been otherwise. Good follow-up question there, Master PJ. Einsteinium says he missed the Washington breakdown. Is Bagley somebody you're interested in? Yes, Bagley is one of my favorite contrarian plays on this slate. It is not for the faint of heart, but relative to his projected ownership just being a slightly over 10%. I think the field is overlooking what his upside is. Now, it could be an unfortunate situation where they just go like 24 minutes to Bagley, 24 minutes for Rashawn Holmes. What I'm really trying to capture here is the upside. Also, it seems like there might be some confusion in the chat. Jalen Smith being out. Jalen Smith is on the Pacers. Don't confuse him with Jabari Smith Jr. So shout out to SC in the YouTube chat who's clarifying that for anybody who is confused. Next question is from Kraken Tiles. Wants to know, is there a limit to the single player ROI that I would negatively boost? Not really. There's not like one given number. I'm like, oh, I won't go below 15% or won't go below 20%. It's just more so trying to manipulate it to where I get my lineups to look like what I want them to. But there's no number where it's like, oh, I can't go below this mark or above this particular mark. Madub T is saying, with Atlanta having no real big guys except for Onyeka Okongwu, how does he match up to Precious on FanDuel? First off, talked about it before. I do like both of them as options. I think they are both center players you should be getting to. Between Precious and Onyeka Okongwu, I do get to more of Precious. He's a little bit cheaper on FanDuel, and I understand that there are no other bigs available for the Hawks, but I still have to expect Achua to play more minutes because his minutes have just been absurd as of late. So I do prefer Precious Achua to Onyeka Okongwu. Both of them really strong options, though. Rico Rod asked me Bagley or Jabari Smith on FanDuel. I do prefer Jabari Smith over on FanDuel. And then we've got Warren asked me max amount of Houston players per lineup. If you're hand building a lineup, I probably wouldn't go more than 4 of any one team. Then we've got R Logs asking Kobe White or Bobby Miller. I assume he means Brandon Miller. And let's see. Kobe White or Brandon Miller. So there's Kobe White. Yeah, I prefer Kobe White to Brandon Miller. Just ever so slightly lean towards Kobe White there. Do you have a preference there, EMac? Kobe White or Brandon Miller?
Kobe White. Prefer the track record over Miller.
And then Stokes. This is an interesting question. I'm actually kind of surprised we haven't been asked this yet. But Stokes is asking us, who is our favorite pay-up option for tonight? What do we want to consider a pay-up option for this slate, EMac? Give me the price point, because this isn't a slate
like anything above 9,000, I guess.
Okay, so even then, it's not that many guys to choose from. But yeah, Tyrese Maxey for me if we're going above 9K.
All right, mine is going to be Kevin Durant, also my nuke of the night. Somebody had asked a super chat for my nuke of the night. There's your low-owned guy that can really bring the thrashing. He's paying for it, $10,000 even on DK, but he would be my nuke.
Tim Lee wants to know favorite play for single entry. I'm going to stick with Marvin Bagley as a play I really like for single entry.
Yeah, Bagley and Jaren Jackson Jr.
And then C-Zap is asking how much Jeff Green is too much on DK. I mean, I've got Jeff Green in about half my lineups right now. He's min price. He's going to play a bunch of minutes. We've seen Jeff Green start this year, and if my memory holds correct, and I'm usually pretty good at remembering these kind of random things, I think we've seen Jeff Green play upwards of 40 minutes in a start this year. Let's see. Jeff Green. Yeah, he played 38 minutes against Portland in one game. That game did go to overtime, but still, there's a lot of minutes ceiling for Jeff Green. And I know that he's not a great fantasy producer. I know that he's actually, I think, the only player in the NBA that's older than EMac is old man Jeff Green. But still, if you're going to give somebody who's that cheap 32 minutes even as a projection, think about it this way. Even if he just totally shits the bed as a fantasy option, scores half a fantasy point per minute EMac in 32 minutes, you'd be getting 16 fantasy points out of him. Once again, that's like a worst case scenario you're kind of looking at him from. So yeah, I think that Jeff Green should project relatively well, just relative to his price tag, not relative to like actually good basketball players. But yeah, Jeff Green's a very good punt option for today. And all right, we're all caught up, so we could hit on these super chats now.
Yep, top William Holyfield. If you have one, go ahead and put that in. Otherwise, thank you for the $2. Corey Shea wants another recap of the top contrarian plays by position. We've hit a ton of times on Achua and Bagley. I liked Vince Williams. What else do you have now that we're 6 minutes away here from that?
So it was the top contrarian plays at each position. Yeah, so we did this before as well, and nothing's really changed for me. Tyrese Maxey at point guard, shooting guard. Once again, we're talking about low-owned plays. So go with Kobe White there, but I don't have like an insane amount of Kobe White. He's just a very contrarian play that I'm a little bit overweight to. At small forward, I'd answered Tobias Harris before. I'll stick with that. At power forward, I didn't really have one, and I still don't really have one that I love. Center, there are a number of different ways you could go here. Marvin Bagley is very contrarian. Preston Chu is very contrarian. Two guys I'm overweight to. And yeah, this is probably the most like sub 10% owned guys that I've really liked on a slate in quite a while, EMac.
It's working out because you have the extra salary to go do some other things today. We don't always see that.
True that.
Donovan Mitchell. I don't think Donovan Mitchell's getting enough love. I like that someone called him out a little bit there. I think that was a tiers question, but
yeah. So as far as well, somebody was asking about Trae Young versus Donovan Mitchell. That was for tiers purposes. So one thing about Donovan Mitchell is I don't love him from just a points per dollar standpoint on this slate, but I end up getting some exposure to him just because we have all this value and nobody spend up. The most expensive player on the slate, it's Kevin Durant at 10K. So just when you're kind of missing those pay up options, you just kind of get forced to play some of these 9K guys or guys who are priced around there. So if I could get away from Donovan Mitchell, I would, but I just can't really. But there are other guys. Like I prefer Tyrese Maxey for a similar price point.
That makes sense.
Let's see what else we have in the Discord chat. We've got a question here from Tim Lee. He wants to know if we prefer Tobias Harris or who's DDV?
Is it DeMar DeRozan?
I've never heard somebody call DeMar DeRozan DDV though.
Well, DDR, but it could be a typo.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Or it could be, Dance Dance Revolution related. Who's to say? I prefer Tobias Harris though.
Now you're talking Alex Baker specials. Yeah. He is the Dance Dance Revolution.
If people have never seen Alex Baker play Dance Dance Revolution, it's one of the more impressive athletic things I've ever seen. Oh, good point. Dante DiVincenzo. Could that be what DDV is? I also never have seen people call Dante DiVincenzo DDV. So here's the way.
You don't know how to spell it and you're on your phone. Yeah, I could see going there. It is Dante DiVincenzo because they're very similar.
Yeah, that makes sense. Although I liked your call out too, that it could have just been a typo. So as far as DiVincenzo goes, he really needs Jalen Brunson out for me to want to get to him today because we've seen a really big price uptick now for Dante DiVincenzo. We're still waiting on an injury report for the Knicks and a starting lineup because unless that's come through in the last few minutes here, it hasn't. I don't have a great feel for what the Knicks are going to do with their starting lineup. They've got Alec Burks coming back. They've got Bogdanovic. And by coming back, I mean, he used to be on the Knicks and they just traded for him at the deadline. He's back on the team. They have Bojan Bogdanovic now. But the other thing that's tricky with this is that Jalen Brunson is questionable. If Brunson's out, I don't know, do they start McBride? Do they just throw Josh Harden in at point guard and bring Bojan Bogdanovic into the starting lineup? I don't really know exactly what to make of the Knicks starters until we actually see it with new players being in the mix. They could even start Alec Burks at point guard. That's something we've seen the Knicks do in the past back in the day when he was with the team a couple of years ago. So as of right now, I don't really like Dante DiVincenzo. I would be getting exposure to him if Brunson is rolled out, but Brunson's still questionable.
All right, I'm uploading my lineups. This is why I love The Sims. Makes it very, very easy, Greg.
And let's see if we have anything else that has come in. If you guys haven't done yet, do us a favor, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And yeah, quick, this show went. A couple of questions came in really fast here. And we've got one from Champino26, Vince Williams or Eamon Thompson. That is Eamon Thompson for me. I'm getting to a ton of Thompson. And then JEW, favorite chalk player to fade and pivot to on DK. All right, let's see. Who's a super owned player that I don't have quite as much as the field does. Jalen Johnson is very, very popular. I am underweight to the field on Jalen Johnson. I prefer Kyle Kuzma for a similar price point. Let's see if there's anybody else. It's kind of hard to figure this out in like 30 seconds where it's like, who's somebody who's really chalk and then somebody...
Jabari Smith Jr., we have him at 43% in the field. I have him for 30. And we had talked about how good the Houston Rocket players were. So that was surprising to me.
But yeah, I'm underweight to the field on Jalen Johnson. His ownership has gotten to be super high. We've got Jalen Johnson now project for 30% ownership, even with DeJounte Murray. And I think that's a little bit too high. But hey, we made it to lock. This has been, I think, the fastest show we've ever done together, EMac. That went by in like a minute.
It certainly feels that way. It certainly feels that way. You and Lindy have turned this into a true art form. You guys do great. The old NBA chaos and all the news. I want to remind you guys all that you can see Lindquist tomorrow. He will be teaming up with Matt Gajeski at 2:00 for NFL Live Before Lock. At 1:00, you're going to get Dave Loughlin and Ben Rossa for the NFL Deeper Dive. It's Super Bowl 58 tomorrow. Kickoff is at 6:30. Of course, if you go to the YouTube description here and click through the link to BetMGM through our link, you will get the opportunity to put $10 in for your deposit, make a $5 wager, and they will immediately give you $158 in bet credits. Win or lose, you're going to want to do that because that runs out tomorrow afternoon. So check that out with BetMGM.
That's it. That's the end of the program. Do the line, EMac. Say the line, the Simpsons meme. Do it. Say the thing.
All right. So you follow Greg out there on Twitter at Ehrenberg DFS. I am at EMac DFS. Of course, it is stochastic_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.